Welcome to the Teach Joyfully podcast, where we talk about all things elementary teaching with some mom stuff thrown in. I'm Lisa Burns, a teacher success coach, veteran elementary teacher, and mom of 5. I'll be your host. Thanks for joining me. Today, I'd like to talk about being stuck. You know the feeling when overwhelm sets in and you simply can't make a move or a decision left or right, much less forward. It can feel like you're walking through mud or worse, quicksand. Just stuck, barely moving. Everything seems like it's conspiring to keep you in place as the rest of life rushes past. You know that feeling. I know you've been there, my friend. Maybe you have teacher friends who are just embracing the situation as crazy as it is right now and moving on, but for some reason, you are just stuck. Right now, many of us teachers are in that awful place. It might be because you still don't know the plan for school starting, so it's nearly impossible to plan. Or maybe you can just barely face the overwhelm of figuring out how to teach in this new, ever-shifting normal. Or maybe you're grieving and feeling unmoored by not being able to teach in your classroom, your anchor. So how do you get unstuck and back on track? So the real question isn't how do we fix that situation, because some of this stuff we have no control over. So the real question is, how do you get unstuck and back on track in the situation that you currently have so you can move forward and enjoy teaching again? Here's my thoughts on that. And this is not going to be a shock, but get out a piece of paper and a pencil and write down all the things you need to do. Even if it's if it's weighing on your mind, write it down. Then pick something. Do something, anything that is a step in the right direction. It doesn't even matter if it has to do with teaching. Sometimes we just have to make progress somewhere in our lives in order to get us going again. But say it is going to be a teaching thing. So it might be just writing one lesson plan with 3 ways to teach it, just in case. Maybe you just need to get your first day of school lessons ready, but do it just like you're going to teach in your regular classroom in a normal situation. And then you're going to tweak it one at a time for full online learning, modified classroom learning, and a blended model if that's an option in your district or school. Once you have that lesson plan ready, I want you to think, what needs to change if I have to teach this online? What won't work that will need an alternative? How can you modify it? Then create the changes that need to happen in order for that to work. Now, if blended learning is a possibility in your district, then you'll need to tweak it one more time in order to make that model work as well. Do the same process and figure that out. Why? Because you need to know you can do this so you'll quit dreading it so much. No, it won't fix it all, but it will give you a sense of control and of possibility, and it will get you unstuck so that you can start thinking about what you can do instead of what you can't do. Because that's part of why you're stuck, is we keep thinking about what we can't do and how things are different, and then we just get overwhelmed with it all. Start with what you normally do and then make some tweaks to make it fit for whatever situations are possibilities in your school. Once you do that, I promise it will get easier. No, it won't fix everything, but it will get easier. Once you have an entire first day of school's lessons ready, you can work on the first week. And once you have the first week, you can move on from there. But once you have that first couple of days or even week done, now it's time to find something fun or special that you can do in each one of these possible teaching settings that's different from the other settings. Something that will make you excited to try, something new and something different, or something that your students will just enjoy. This is where the magic happens, and you need some magic right now more than ever. And so don't forget that part. But first, you got to get the basics down. So once you've done a whole day of lessons, just keep on moving. Now, maybe getting those lessons plans ready is just too much for you right now. Well, then perhaps your one thing to get you unstuck will be getting your classroom expectations ready. Do them for your regular classroom, and then figure out what that's going to look like online. Remember what happened in the spring and decide what worked, what didn't work, and then make adjustments just in case. And have it all ready. Do you see a theme forming here? Do some of what you normally would do to get ready for school to start, but then just make contingency plans too. If you're doing that, it's so much easier to attack it from that perspective than it is to say, okay, I'm just teaching online, because you might know that you're just teaching online this first semester, and that's okay. But if you're stuck and you're having trouble making progress there, do your lesson plans like you normally would, and then make the tweaks. If you start out with trying to create something completely new, you're really going to overwhelm yourself. And here's the thing, by doing nothing and just waiting to see or waiting to figure it out, we're feeling helpless and victimized. And you are not helpless, and you are not a victim. The reality is you can move forward if we choose to, but we have to choose forward. And forward means one baby step. That's it, just a baby step. And then the next baby step, one foot in front of the other. Sometimes that might mean remembering why we teach. Do you remember? Or maybe it's identifying what we're afraid of. What are you afraid of? Write it down. Think about things you can do instead of the things you can't do. Do the things you can do right now. Do you need to clean out and sort your teaching stuff? Well, then do it. If that's going to get you moving and make you feel better, by all means do it. Have you been meaning to clean out the basement? That's a big project, but if that makes you unstuck, then do that. It's better than sitting around and doing nothing. Making progress in one area, even if it's just something simple, can help us feel unstuck in other areas of our lives. Here's an example. When I really get stuck and I'm feeling overwhelmed and everything's weighing down on me and the house is a mess and I've got a million projects going on and the kids all need things, I stop and we clean the house. I know that sounds crazy when you have all this stuff and deadlines and things, but cleaning the house doesn't take that long if you enlist everyone's help. And once it's done, it's one less thing on my mind and it feels so good. And there's something about getting up and moving and physically doing something that you can see the result of almost immediately that's really rewarding. It feels good physically and it feels good mentally. And that helps me get unstuck. I know it sounds really weird, but it works for me. Whatever it is that will work for you, do that. Action breeds action. Now, there's more than one way that we're feeling stuck. I know a lot of teachers who are feeling unmoored and out of place by not being in their classrooms. And honestly, they're even grieving a little, which is perfectly normal. And I get that. When I first started instructional coaching and working as a resource teacher in a school, in that first school, it was such a small school, they didn't actually have a classroom for me. I felt so unmoored. I'd always had a classroom, and to not have a classroom, I just didn't even know what to do with myself. I had to rethink everything that I was doing. It was really difficult, but once I realized that my classroom didn't make me a teacher, it was me that made me a teacher. It was so much easier. Well, the same is true for you. Your classroom doesn't make you a teacher. All the stuff doesn't make you a teacher. What's in your heart and your head is what makes you a teacher. You can teach anywhere, with or without all that stuff. You really can. But you can help yourself by creating a workspace in your home that makes you happy and maybe feels a little bit classroomy. Anything that will help you kind of get that sense of yourself back can help. But there are two other things that are helping teachers find a sense of place. Now, I know that these are things that not everybody agrees with. In fact, many people feel like they're a waste of time. However, I think they're giving teachers a sense of control, a chance to use their creativity, and giving them a sense of place. And that's the Bitmoji classroom, and the Google site. Creating a classroom online that actually looks like a classroom really is giving a lot of teachers a sense of control and a sense of place, and it's helping them feel more like a teacher. I know you don't need that classroom to feel like a teacher, but it is so much easier sometimes when you feel like you have a beautiful space, even if that space is online. So if you're really feeling the loss of that classroom and you know you're going to be teaching online, create spaces online and in your home that help give you that sense of being a teacher in a classroom that you're missing so much. I know the kids are still virtual and you're missing that part a lot, but we can change that. So change what you can. Here's the thing about creating classroom kind of spaces online with Google Sites or Bitmoji classrooms. It's free and so easy. Trust me, it's not as hard as you think it is. I'll link to a tutorial or two in the show notes. There are some really great ones out there. And I'll also link to the video of the one that I created so you can see the possibilities. It's not hard, and I have a set of free templates that you can use to get you started. It might wind up being your new favorite space. It will give you a sense of being in a classroom, of having a space that's yours, if that's something that you're missing. It really is a game changer for so many teachers who are feeling lost without their classrooms. We talk a lot with our students about grit, mental toughness, and resiliency, but what about us? Do we know how to deal with being uncomfortable? I have to tell you, this year is going to be a year like no other. I know you know that, but sometimes we just have to say things out loud. And be grateful for whatever situation you have this fall, because I guarantee for every teacher that is hating their school's teaching options, there's another teacher out there that desperately wishes they could have what you have. The grass is always greener. Every school, public or private, is doing the best they can. Are they making mistakes? Oh, yes. They are 100%. It's like watching a train wreck with some of these schools and districts. But there's plenty of schools and districts that are doing great things as well. And the reality is, every school and district is doing the very best they can. And we have to honor that and remember that these schools and districts are run by human beings, and humans make mistakes. We just have to move on and remember that we can control only so much. Control what you can and let go of the rest. Now, I have heard of a lot of teachers who worry about going back into school, which is valid. It can be scary and we don't know what that will bring. And people are worried about getting sick. I get it. But there are schools out there that are facing such financial hardship that if they don't open this fall and keep their enrollment up, they may close forever, which means that all those teachers will be out of jobs. So whether that's your situation or not, please don't be critical. And remember that everyone's situation is different and you don't know everything just from what you can see. So one more thing I'd like to add, if you are being required to teach in person and feel extremely anxious about this, talk to your admin. You've got to talk to someone. Get some counseling if you need to, whatever it is, but you do need to advocate for yourself. If you need a different situation and they simply can't provide it, maybe it's time to start thinking a little bit differently. That doesn't mean that you won't have to go back in person, at least to start. And I want to remind you that I am all about teacher retention and keeping all of you fabulous teachers in our schools. But sometimes that's not the best solution for us personally. Please know you don't have to stay stuck. There are other options too. I'll link to a couple of episodes I've done about them in the show notes. In addition, I know teachers who are taking a leave of absence and taking on small groups of students that are being homeschooled or schooled online. Some are doing all of the teaching for a group, and some are tutoring and supporting parents as they venture into these uncharted waters. Some are teaching online, and some are teaching in person. Start asking around to see who in your area is looking for help. If you don't need insurance from your current job, this is a viable option that might give you the peace and flexibility that you're looking for. Being a homeschool or remote school support teacher is quickly becoming a new category of teacher. And I have to tell you, it's worth a look if your situation is not working for you. So if you're truly stuck, overwhelmed, grieving, or unable to make your current situation work, maybe it's time to get unstuck and explore some different possibilities. It's time to think outside that box. My prayer is that each and every one of you will be safe and will find the right situation for you. We are all different and have different needs and circumstances, so don't go criticizing another teacher who is happy to go back to school or the one who is glad to be teaching online. They've found some peace and are moving forward in their own way. Do you, and let them do them. Because let's face it, there's enough criticism to go around outside of the teaching community. We certainly don't need to do it within our own community. I was talking to a teacher friend recently, and we were talking about how being a teacher is a lot like being famous. And why do I say that? Well, people are going to love you one day, put you up on a pedestal and say fabulous things about you, and then turn around the next day and kick that pedestal that they gave you out from underneath you and tear you down. Get over it. What other people think of you is simply none of your business. You know who you are, and you know the good you do every single day by being a teacher. What you do matters. We all know that, but everyone is stressed and overwhelmed, and sometimes it's easy to find a scapegoat. You can do this. You really can, and what other people say doesn't matter. It doesn't. Get on with what you need to do for you and for your students. I have great faith in you, and you can make this an amazing year in its own way. And if nothing else, we know for certain that this school year will go down in the history books. So I would say to you, how do you want that history book to read? Because let me tell you, there's two ways it can go, and you have some control in how that happens. Yes, there's going to be lots you don't have control over, but there's plenty that you do. And don't you want those history books to say that teachers just jumped in and made the best of an incredibly hard situation and turned it into some amazing, wonderful things that changed education forever? I know that this situation doesn't seem like an opportunity, but to me, it is. I think it's an incredible opportunity, and maybe that's how I'm dealing with all the craziness, but I do believe it's an opportunity. We really do have an opportunity to change the things that we hate about education currently and shore up the things that we love. So grab that opportunity and turn it into something great. So that's it, my teacher friends. We are out of time. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you liked today's episode, I'd love it if you'd go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave a review. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. Also, you can continue the conversation online with me in my Facebook group, the Teach Joyfully Podcast Community, where elementary teachers can connect, get help, and encouragement for all kinds of education and parenting topics. You can find the show notes and links to all the resources mentioned in today's episode on my website at www.hopeineducation.com/podcast. And remember, a happy teacher is a good teacher, so teach joyfully and take care of you.